Hi, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of the Until We Get There podcast.
Yeah, I'm Anna.
I'm Reagan.
This is our first time. Let's be honest, we are very inexperienced with podcasting, but we're excited to be here to do a podcast in general.
It's a fun process. It's a learning process. We definitely are not going to get it completely right on the first couple times, but
That's true.
our goal is to just feel as natural as possible.
Yeah.
So,
like,
what we're going to try to do.
This kind of podcast, like, if you guys are wondering, what is this podcast about? It is basically a life podcast. I don't have any other way to describe it. It's kind of like random. Yeah. So we're just gonna talk about. We're both high schoolers. So
yeah, we're both juniors in high school, and so we really wanted to just be kind of like a teen, relatable podcast, just kind of talking about different interests and different things going on in our life, and how this all kind of started is, I guess, one thing we do every night is we FaceTime for a couple hours, pretty much every night.
Pretty much every night, without fail.
We started to realize kind of just kind of how stupid and funny our conversations were on FaceTime.
Yeah.
And this is kind of, instead of recording those calls, this is kind of our way to do it.
Yeah, it's our way to do that. And then also no, if no one listens, no one listens. But we like it and we are enjoying making them.
It's
so
a
we're
fun outlet for us. Obviously, this is
Yeah.
our first time kind of experimenting with it, but it's already fun just kind of getting to talk to each other.
Getting the setup, getting the mics. I think the mic, to be honest, the mic is the turning point. Because we had been talking about doing a podcast, always joking about it. And then I was like, okay, we're going to actually do it. And so I ordered a mic on Amazon. And when they came, that was okay, we have to do it now. We spent money. We have to actually do it. So now we're here.
The idea had sprouted. Oh, I don't like that word.
I didn't like that you used that word.
The idea had sprouted over winter break, and we were kind of journalism next semester, what if we do this? And it was kind of one of those where you say you're gonna do something, but you actually have no intentions of following through.
Yeah.
And then we were in class, and we decided to order the mics, and yeah, I would say the mic makes it feel very official.
Yeah,
it makes it feel like it's a real thing.
Now we're once I set up the mic in here, and I was we set a date for recording. We were okay, this is happening.
And it all, I would say, happened pretty quickly. Everything kind of came together within the last week because we kind of ordered the mics, and then we immediately were kind of deciding on names, logos, and started to plan out some of our episodes.
We can talk about the name, I guess. That's one of the big things that we're really excited about. For sure. The name, definitely, it's not random. So both of us are pretty, specifically me, I guess, are really obsessed with the show called New Girl. It's a really silly show. It's like a sitcom.
It's the perfect, I don't want to say background show, but it's just stupid enough where it's you can kind of do anything while you're watching it.
Yeah, I'll be cooking or cleaning or even doing math, and I'll have a New Girl on. Probably not the best idea because it kind of makes it harder to focus. But basically, it's a sitcom, and I watched the show through. There's 7 seasons, and I watched the show through, and then I immediately restart it because by the time I get through it, my mind is reset in my brain. So I'm I'm gonna just rewatch it. But in one of our favorite episodes, where the 2 main characters are 2 favorite characters.
Yeah, I would argue that's probably both of our favorite episodes.
Yeah, they finally get together, and during their first kiss, I guess, the song "Until We Get There" plays. So we were talking about this podcast is just a podcast about us kind of going through life and dealing with college applications and school. So I was what if we do it until we get there, because we don't know where we're going.
Yeah, it was. So we were kind of texting one night, after class, just kind of going through some stuff. Once the mics were kind of ordered, we just kind of started going through everything. And when we were deciding on the names, we had this huge list of names. And then once she said that one, I was immediately yes, in all caps. I was I love it. And we had this kind of huge note with a bunch of names. We had came up with probably 30.
Yeah.
We had a lot of different options, and we were asking people kind of hey, which ones do you like? But regardless kind of what people voted for, like, this is the one that stuck with us.
Yeah, there was, like, another one that got some votes, but just, like, this one felt like right. Like, the moment we said it, none of the other ones when we said them, we were like, "Absolutely, like, that's the one." We had, like, doubts, but, like, when I
Yeah.
said this one, it was like, "Oh, that is a great idea," because it also has meaning to us, it's not something random.
100%. Like, there's kind of like obviously the new girl meaning, which is kind of like a fun little like Easter egg. Like, if you know the song, kind of understand like the context and kind of like why we picked it, but it relates so heavily to our lives. Like, we
Yeah.
don't know what we're doing, and that's kind of like the whole motive and the whole like idea on kind of even why we wanted to do this
Yeah,
podcast.
exactly.
And so it's so cool.
Because like, we're modeling the podcast after I mean, like, I always have kinda listened to podcasts, but, like, specifically this one, Emma Chamberlain's, which everybody listens to. I know Reagan listens to it.
Yeah.
And then there's one called Ladies and Tangents, which I've listened to for a while, and that's kinda what we're modeling at. It's just, like, 2 ladies who, like, talk to each other about their lives, about, like, things that their audiences want to hear, and I found it to be really relaxing, so I was like, "Reagan, what if we just do a podcast like that? It doesn't have to be a specific, like, topic for the whole season."
For sure. So I've been getting into podcasts more recently. I would say like in the past couple months, I've been listening to them more. And I definitely listen to Anything Goes by Emma Chamberlain. I'd say that's probably like the most
Yep.
popular one. But it's like what I love about that podcast is it feels so natural and it feels so raw and like you can tell like she's truly just talking.
Yeah.
And it's not something scripted. And I also listen to Pretty Basic, which I know you may not have
I don't listen
seen.
to that one,
Um, but it's, like, it's cool because it's, like, a bunch of influencers, but it's, like, you can just, like, feel their, like, natural conversation and just feel, like, the emotion behind it, and it doesn't feel like this, like, scripted thing, which is really what I was trying to
Yeah.
bring into the podcast.
Basically that's what this is for. Like, we're just talking to each other, which we do every night. And we're like, why not like let other people see? Granted, it's more official and more like
It's a bit more planned out, but it's kind of like, why not?
yeah, exactly.
Like
Like, why not do a podcast? And it also fulfills like for journalism. We were talking about like what project we wanted to work on. We were like, podcasting was an option. We're like, that seems like a really fun thing to try.
mhm.
And
'Cause, like, I was in the class first semester, and she wasn't.
I was not.
In first semester, we had a couple other people do a couple episodes for a podcast, and I always thought it was a cool idea and was like super into it. But like nothing ever went with like our podcast, and we were kind of talking about like ways we could get like our multimedia badge and just kind of talking about like different mediums, so it's not just articles that we're constantly producing. And I was kind of like, this is a cool idea, but I didn't have anyone to do it with at the time. So when I knew she was joining the course for second semester, that's when we had started to talk about it on winter break, and it
Yeah.
started to become like an idea.
Because I kind of joined the course because first of all, I like writing. Had reservations because I don't tend to write for other people, but I do thoroughly enjoy writing. So when Reagan was telling me about it, I was like, "Well, you're in the class. It seems like a fun experience, and I'm interested in going into that field when I'm older, possibly." I won't make any commitment, but so I was like, "Yeah, I mean, that seems like a fun idea." And then we were talking about the podcast because we generally, when we're together, we are always talking. So we were like, "That seems like the perfect person to kind of do the podcast with."
Mhm. And so she was not originally enrolled in journalism, and I being in the class, it was a very tight-knit group. It's a pretty small class,
It
and
is
so
really
we
small.
all kind of got to do our own thing, but it was just like a fun environment. It was really ran like a newsroom, and it was really you could write what you wanted and work on stuff like when you wanted to. It was such a cool environment when she kind of mentioned like, "Hey, like I'd be interested in this," um, but she also was planning on taking it for her senior year, and I was kind of like, "You should join the class for second semester." Like most people don't because it's a full year class and it's kind of never been done before, but I was like, "Why don't we give it a
But
shot?"
and I had good recommendations, and I was a decent writer, so we were like, "That seems like a great idea." And then now I'm planning on taking it again next year, and so is she, so we can continue this podcast, so you guys aren't getting rid of us. Um,
And I think that's what's so exciting about like starting this process is it has the opportunity to be kind of this big thing. And it's like we don't know whether it's going to turn into that or not, but it's making this all so much more rewarding because it's
yeah,
like it has the chance
and even
to.
if it's like not super popular or something like that, which it probably
Won't
won't
be.
be, we enjoy like making them. So we were like, why not? Like, even if only one person watches, we enjoy talking to each other about it and planning it, and it's like a fun time. So we're really excited about it.
I'm very excited about it because I know we have both, even on Snapchat, have like these vlog stories that we can just
Yeah, we
talk
just
to
like rant
people.
to
And
people.
I'm pretty confident that most people don't listen
I
to
listen to hers.
every
Don't worry, guys.
to every single thing that gets uploaded on there. But it's so fun to have an outlet where you can talk to things, like talk to
Yeah,
people and just talk
exactly.
about things, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it keeps us close too, which is really nice because now like we have something. So you're not getting rid of me now. We have to do the podcast, even if you're mad at me.
We have something to like kind of keep us grounded, and
Because like we've been friends for a pretty long time since like eighth grade ish.
we have, and we're juniors in high school right now.
Yeah. So, but her and I, we were all kind of like in a big group, but like her and I weren't as close until like the last year when we had like an English class together, and it was during the pandemic. So like there was only a couple people in person. So Reagan and I sat next to each other, and like we realized like wow, we like one on one really click.
It just like, yeah, it's like the way we would like talk about things is just so differently, and like the connections you build kind of outside of like a big friend group are just so different. And it's like we were friends before, but it's like we were rediscovering kind of this new friendship.
Yeah, we realized kind of like we're good a pair. Like rather than like, because I feel like we were. I mean, like we were always friends. We always hung out, but like we never had like heart to heart or like any conversations, just us. And once we did, we were like, wow, like that was actually like I'm kind of sorry, sad that I hadn't figured that out before sooner.
Exactly. It's been so cool. And yeah, so we were in English, our English 2 honors class. We were in all of sophomore year, and that
Yes.
was all of COVID. And I would say that's kind of like where it started, kind of like where the ball got rolling. And then we were in AP Lang this year, and I remember
Yeah.
selecting AP Lang, and I was kind of like, oh God, like I don't know if this is the right fit for me. And I almost considered dropping it after the first day of school. Because I was like, this is so much reading, this is so much writing, like
And I
this
was
is gonna
like,
be so
no,
difficult.
no, you're stuck. And then so she stuck with it, and she was fine. She was completely fine. I was honestly not super worried about it, but I
Yeah.
was like, she's just freaking out a little bit. She'll be fine. I knew she would be. She's a good writer. She's a good reader. She was
Thank you.
fine.
But yeah, I stuck with it, and we worked on almost every project. Every project that required a partner, we worked on
Yeah,
together.
I read all of your essays, every single one.
A hundred
I'm not
percent.
great at editing because I'm not a brutally honest person. So if something's like that, I'm not gonna tell you, which
Yeah,
makes me not a great editor. But you found other
that was
people
a
to actually
fun
edit.
process to go through. And some of my papers, I was kind of like, why did I get that grade? And Anna's like, oh, I don't know.
I would have her read mine, and they were fine too. I mean, she wasn't like brutally honest with them or anything, but it's hard to be brutally honest when they were good.
Wow. But it was such a fun environment, and it
Yeah,
honestly like just having that connection in school, because it's like just being out of school friends or just being in school friends, like it is somewhat hard to keep up.
yeah,
So finding a really good balance of the both, I think just gave us such a good like platform for a friendship and for a relationship, and
yeah.
it
And like
was
we FaceTime like every day. So like there's one day I only have one class with her, which is journalism.
yeah.
So like especially the day that I don't see her, it's like wait FaceTime for longer because I was like I need to see Reagan.
Exactly. And we used to have last semester, we used to have both of our lunch periods together. And that was like just a great way to like rant, get things off of our chest and stuff like that. And now I'm just kind of like everything that I would have wanted to say during lunch, I'm like, I'm adding it to the FaceTime call. I'm
Yeah,
like,
adding it to the FaceTime call,
I
adding
need
it to
to
the
say it.
podcast, depending on what it is, I suppose.
And I was like, new episode? Question mark.
But yeah, this is. I think the other thing we wanted to talk about was the logo. We don't want people to be confused about the logo.
Yeah, so I
Um,
don't know if you guys have seen it yet. You might have, you might not have. I don't think we fully decided like where we're gonna put it and stuff like that. Um, but I personally am in love with the logo.
I love the logo. Basically, the way it happened was when we were planning the podcast, Reagan was taking care of like planning the episodes and like talking to the teacher about where it's gonna download and all this stuff. and I was off goofing off, like, I'm making a jingle on the piano, and I was like, "Oh, I'll make, like, a logo," and she was like, "Okay." She's like, "I guess you can."
I was like,
Um,
"Go for it." I'm like,
so it's basically it's a microphone with, like, a road going around the microphone, and, like, there's a car, and there's, like, flowers, and there's the sun coming up behind the microphone. And the whole thing is like I wanted to tie it to the podcast because my original ideas were bad. They were pretty bad. It was like literally a car going up a road or like a microphone with a cowboy hat on top because we are like Bitmojis match on Snapchat with a cowboy hat. And then I was like, oh, like what if I do a microphone? And then I was like, the road kind of represents the cars, like us, I guess. Sounds so it's so deep, guys.
it actually kind of is because it's like originally we just kind of wanted this like nature-esque kind of like item or picture, and then she found a way to tie it to the podcast, and again she had sent like a couple ideas, and I'm like, those are cool, like I'm totally, because what she was gonna draw them all by hand, and I was just gonna like trace them on my iPad just so I could upload them and kind of have like a digital copy of it. And then when she sent, what our current logo is now, I was like, I am in love with it. There's so much
yeah.
meaning behind it, yet it's so simple. It's so
Because
cool.
the other thing is like Ray and I both like are very into like the hiking or like the I'm a plant person. You can see these are two of my plants. They are featured in the video, but like that's like one of our things is like we have a lot of hikes we want to go on. We're thinking about maybe trying to go to Colorado for college, possibly. Um, so like that's kind of why we included that because that's a big part of like us, I guess, together. Is
It's
that's
a
one
big
of our
part of
shared
who we
interests.
are.
Yeah,
And it's something that we want to be included because it doesn't, it's like this whole podcast, like it's meant to be relatable and it's meant to be this whole like teen thing, but it's also about ourselves and it's about like our life. And we definitely wanted that to shine through, not only in the name, not only in the jingle, but in the logo. Like
yeah.
that's how kind of,
The creative process went pretty much as well as it could have. We did not hit many roadblocks because, to be honest, all of that stuff kind of came together in the last week, the last two
it came
weeks.
together very quickly, and kind of when we were talking about the name, how it was just kind of like this gut feeling that it felt right. That's kind of how the whole creative process went. Like
Yeah,
just kind of pitching ideas and pitching things, and we both were very much on the same page with like exactly like what felt right and what we
yeah.
wanted.
Like the moment the name and the logo, like we agreed on them pretty much exactly. Like we were like, no, that's the one. Like we 100% agreed. Um, I mean, like the other things, like we're gonna attach like a Google form to like the video because that way, like you guys can tell us like what do you want us to talk about. Because as much as we want to talk about us and like our lives and things we're interested in, we also want to talk about what you guys want to hear.
Yeah, the whole point is to have something that people want to listen to.
Will people listen to it? We'll wait and see, I guess.
Yeah.
But
It's so out of our control, but that's what's kind of cool is like we also want to feel like nice and official and stuff like that. And so we do want people to have a say
yeah,
and be
and
interested.
our
Like,
plan for it is like we want to do some serious topics.
mhm.
Like I think our next one we were talking about maybe doing like relationships or something like that. Um, and then we also want to do some fun ones. We were thinking about doing some reviews because we're both like into Marvel movies, and we're
Yeah.
both. I'm specifically very into books, and so we were just gonna like talk about anything that we're really into, and that would be one of the more lighthearted episodes to kind of butter up, I guess, the other episodes.
Yeah.
Those ones will probably be more funny, hopefully.
I know it's kind of like a nice break, but we were kind of like debating like, do we want it all to be serious or do we want it all to be lighthearted? And we kind of wanted like a nice balance of both because it honestly like that's kind of how to best
That
describe the teenage years. Like you have
yeah,
those days and you have those episodes where it is more serious and life needs to kind of be taken with kind of this like tunnel vision. Like you kind of need to have like this path in mind. It gets stressful and it
yeah,
gets hard. And then there's also some days where you're truly living your best life.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. So that's what this podcast is gonna be, I guess.
yeah, that's pretty much kind of about us and kind of what to expect out of this whole process. So thank you guys for listening.
And we will see you next episode.
All
That's so
right.
fun to say.
I know.